On today's podcast,
The first time you get knocked down, you think you'll never get up again. You get knocked down a few more times, it's not too hard to step back up.
the truth is adding value will never go out of style.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I'm Brian Smith, your host, and I've got a great guest here today. I'm really excited to talk about our second time, actually.
That's right.
Thanks for joining me again, Jim. Busy guy, so I definitely appreciate the time. And again, I don't know all the numbers. I didn't Google you and really research it like I did last time, but I know you did over $1 billion in sales last year.
That's right. And we're headed towards, we're going to do about $1.1 billion this year. So
That's amazing.
We're headed in that direction again.
And so you've been in real estate for about 30 years, roughly?
A little over 30, about
Okay.
36 years.
So you're barely over 50.
That's right.
We're going to go with that.
That's right.
Started in real estate when you were 12. But won't really get into a ton of the background because we went into that last time. But ultimately grew up. You've had to make everything that you've got.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the reasons I'm interested in sitting down talking to you and other friends of mine I respect and enjoy conversation. I mean, you and I talk back and forth outside of this about other things, and we share a lot of common interests. And, you know, really, I feel like as you have success in your business or anything that you're doing, your responsibility becomes to share back with other people. And it does, you don't have to be in exactly the same line of work for what business practices work in all businesses.
Right.
And then for me, it's like when we get to sit around and talk, you make my brain get stimulated a little bit, and I get to go then take back those thoughts and put them into action.
Well, the goal for someone like me, or probably a lot of people watching this, is you want to, you don't always have the opportunity to get around somebody that's been there and done that and achieving at a high level. So one of my goals is to get around more people like you, that when I get around somebody that has a billion in sales and we're doing $1 million, and it's like, man, I got so much to learn. And it's obviously something you've been there and done that. So I appreciate any time I get around you because I grow every time I get around you. I do my best not to talk as much when I'm around you because I want to hear what you have to say, to be honest. But
And you know what? One of my goals from that, when we talk about that, one of my goals is to make other people see that people who are successful really aren't any different than them. We put our pants on the same way. We react to life the same way other people do. The difference is we're more laser focused. Once you've done something or achieved it, it's much easier to do it a second, a third, a fourth time. And all of us learn from watching other people. I mean, I remember as a young real estate agent, for me, there was a girl named Phyllis Oborski who was kind of the icon at the time in the real estate industry here. And I would talk to Phyllis occasionally and just really emulate and watch her a little more than other things. And I remember one day, first time I ever sold 9 houses in a day, I called her up, tell her, because one of them was hers. It was like my ninth deal. And she said, yeah, that's the most I've ever done in a day. That's a good day. And of course, that was a long time ago. Now
Right.
it ain't even a big deal anymore. But
it's a bad day for you,
back
probably.
then, that was like one of those meteoric days. And she said, and this is the kind of encouragement I want to pass on to other people. She said, you'll be the one day that'll knock me off. Now, she may have said that to every other person she did business with, but when she told me, I took it to heart, and I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to be her replacement, then I need to watch what she's doing, and I need to start calculating out how I'm going to get to that level to be able to achieve that. And, that happened about 1994, I think I passed her and have been in the same spot ever since. And the truth is, never felt that I was competing with her. I instead set goals for myself that I tried to achieve every single year. And then I grew my own business. And then one day, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't know till 3 years later that it had even happened, because I became so laser focused on what I was doing. I was no longer worried about who else I was competing with. And when you get in the platform I'm in now, because I compete with people all over the world, it's no longer about your local competition. It's no longer about anybody else. It's only about how do I make myself 1% better today than I was yesterday? Not how do I become 1,000% better, because that's unachievable. What I've recognized is I have to daily implement what I can do a better job of today than I did yesterday. Like you and I were talking before we went on air today, and you reminded me of a couple of things I need to do with our videographer that I'll put in my memory bank and then go start working on it, because I'm open to learn. Like, I think that's a problem when people stop being open to learn. That's when you'll see at the same time they'll plateau and there's a decline. If you are not continually learning different ways to get better, then those days when you say you're at your max, you're really going to be at your max. You've got to find better ways to perform to get through it, right?
There's so much you just said there. So the principle of just growing a little bit every day. First off, you're your own competition. And so there's a meme that I love. It's a horse that has the blinders on, and they put the blinders on the horses so they focus on their race, and they're not worried about the other horses. But that's what we have to do.
And you know, the more you really start doing that, you know what you also find at the same time? The folks that thought they were competing with you start accepting you easier, and there's not that conflict that's there, and you're no longer really competition to them. If you're the encourager pulling them up and making them feel better, and that's one of the things every year I do now, and not people on my own team, because I get to encourage them weekly and daily and hourly. But I find 3 or 4 young agents out in the market, male or female, doesn't matter. And I go out and I start encouraging them first through instant messaging, or following them on Facebook or Instagram and watching their story, and then me reaching in to encourage them. Letting my audience see what they're doing helps them, and then they'll ask to reach out to meet me personally, and we'll talk, and they're like, I can't believe you'll sit here and share all this with me. And well, if I don't share it with you, then it's going to die with me. And that's not, I owe it to my community and to what I'm doing to give back to it. Or I honestly believe, and God's a big part of my life. I honestly believe that God shares everything I've got with me to begin with, so it's not mine.
It's not yours.
So if I take possession of it, then He's not going to put those blessings in my path anymore. And the more I'm able to share and help other people, the more it feels like it helps me.
When I hear that, Jim, and feel free to disagree, but I think when I hear that, I think it's coming from a place of abundance. You've got an abundance mentality that there's more than enough out there for us.
That's right.
I don't have to clamor for my little piece of the pie. I just want to give and be good to other people, and whatever happens, happens. And
I believe that. I think that's the limiting factor with most people. They start taking ownership of whatever it is. They work with a client for the first day, and all of a sudden somebody else spoke to them in line at a restaurant, and they think, oh, they're stealing my... People cannot take something away from you that is yours. You earn that by relationships, by having dialogue with people. That's the beginning thing to everything. I think people want to get to the end before they begin. Everybody's rushing to get the transaction to happen, not just in real estate, in life. And they never start the relationships that if you build those relationships, and I'm being repaid today for 35-year-old relationships. Those people call my front desk at my office, and the person says, I know Jim's busy today, but hey, you work for him, so I would never buy a house anywhere else unless I got to help you. And then the first thing that person will do is call me and say, hey, do you remember? Of course I remember. What do you mean, do I remember?
Right.
They helped me launch my career. And that person, when I then call them on the phone, is like, oh, I didn't want to bother you today. I'm like, you could never bother me. I wouldn't have a career if I hadn't met you that first day. I remember everything we did that day, and it inspired me to be able to help other people. You know, if it's there's a friend of mine named Patty Geiger that owns a bunch of yoga studios and you know has really maintained physical fitness throughout her life. Her husband Ted used to be a big Glaxo employee. Now I other than Facebook now when we respond back and forth to each other, haven't been in a room with them in 9 or 10 years. But when they were young kids before they got married, now they got kids in their 30s that have kids. I went to their wedding. I got to participate in their life.
Right.
And, you know, that person will call my office and like, I'm going to somehow forget. That's my history.
Right.
How could I possibly forget any of them?
Right.
You know, that's the thing, because it's not about making a sale. It's about getting to meet that person and them being your friend, you becoming their friend. And, you know, the only time out in the bad part, and it's true with all of your old friends. One of my best friends from high school is a professional bowler now. A few weeks ago, he was at a lane not too far from here, and I got to go watch him bowl that day. And I went over, and it's no big glamour to go to a professional bowling event. It's like going to any other bowling, other than they've got a few cameras in there. And his wife said, "Oh, I cannot believe you would take the time to come to Tony's bowl." We were buddies since we were 6 years old.
Wow.
He's nearby, and I hadn't seen him in 40 years. But we're still best friends. It doesn't matter that I haven't talked to him in 40 years.
Right.
He's still my best friend from that far ago. Relationships don't die, ever. Not even if the person passes. You got them in your heart and in your memories. That's the things that people fail to really focus on. They focus on, what does everybody want? Money.
Right.
Achievements, accomplishments. Instead of, those things are active participation of relationships. You know, every relationship you're in enriches you in some way. Some of them give you money. Some of them just make you feel better about yourself. I think my goal right now is to touch as many people as I can before my time's ended here, to say thank you to the people who touched me going along, and not just the positive touches. Listen, sometimes when people hurt me when I needed to get hurt, helped build my character as much as the people that kissed me and told me I could be anybody I wanted to be.
That's true.
I believe getting knocked down helps you get back up a whole lot quicker the next time. The first time you get knocked down, you think you'll never get up again. You get knocked down a few more times, and it's not too hard to step back up.
I agree 100%. I can honestly say that I think that some of my best times have come from after betrayals or after, you know, some bad scenario where something bad happened to me. If we take that as fuel and let it, okay, you know, like, I believe I'm a really good friend, and you did X. That's okay. I'm gonna take the high road. I'm gonna be the best version of myself I can be. Try to improve that 1% a day. And revenge is just becoming the best version of myself. And you lost a great friend.
The number one thing is forgiveness. I forgive. I don't forget, but I forgive you. Doesn't mean we're going to carry on any longer, because I'm going to step away from that as well. But you have to forgive yourself too. When I know I do bad things, or I know I forgot to be the person I needed to be that second, if I hold that too tight, instead of being able to just forgive me too, because, you know, like, I wish I could tell you every single time I go in, I'm at my best. There's days that all of us are off slightly.
No question. Yeah.
And, you know, when you're still able to persevere and pull through, then when you look back, like, I thought I was off, but I filmed it. I don't know if I was as off as I thought I was, because we accomplished our goal and things worked. You know, I think as long as you are your toughest critic, you're in a good place. When you start believing what other people think about you, good or bad, I think it leads to the wrong thing. Because I think, you know, one of the things you start seeing as you accomplish certain things, people start revering you and talking to you differently. And then I have to remind them, hey, wait a minute. I'm not this person you think I am. My pants go on one leg at a time. Just calm down. Well, I just can't. Someone like you, what is someone like me? I'm a normal guy.
Right.
Like the fact that I happen to have sold $1 billion worth of real estate last year doesn't mean that I changed who I am. I mean, we're right now trying to calculate out how many $1 billion of real estate we sold in our time, because we've never really sat down and looked at my 37-year history and figured out what the cumulative is.
That's fun.
I think it's about 15 billion. And so we're putting that number together, right? Not because we need it, but just, when you start looking back and thinking, wow, that's a
great accomplishment.
That's a neat thing to accomplish. When I started, I think if I did $100 million in a year, a career, not a year, I would have thought I was doing the most humanly possible. And now that's a good month or an okay month. When you get to the point that, I was praying one day, maybe I would do $1 billion in my time. I didn't think in terms of the numbers we're achieving now. My thoughts were so much smaller than where we're going. That's the only thing I think sometimes people do, though, to themselves. They goal set, right? And they set their goal at this bar that they think is something that would really be an achievement for them. And they set this bar so low that they crash right through it, and then they relax because they've already gotten to a new level. And the real truth is, I don't put these bars out other than like at the end of the year. If we're not above $1.1 billion, I'll be disappointed because that's where I was focused on going this year. But I don't want to limit myself by that either. Like if I'm looking at it daily to find out how I'm going to get there, at the end we'll go back and glance a little bit. But if I'm doing that there, then the moment I achieve whatever I needed to for that day, I'm going to relax a little bit. I don't want to get in relax mode. My biggest thing is we don't have enough time here on earth. I don't care if I live to be 1,000, it won't be long enough. So I don't want to waste any of that opportunity. Now, the worst thing about me, that means I hate to sleep. I'm one of those guys that I would stay awake 24 hours a day if you didn't
possible,
just
right?
have to refresh sometime, because I'm so afraid. You know what? If I stop, I'm not going to get to where I'm trying to go. And my dad died when he was 62 years old. And I'm like, there's that artificial cap I'm imposing on myself. Man, I want to get it all done before I get his age.
Sure.
And, the closer I get to it, more I'm like, man, when I get past that, I'll be able to relax and go.
You won't.
I won't ever relax. Like
Right.
I think retirement means, to me, retirement means I'm going to continue to work just as hard as I've worked right this moment. I'm going to just do it for other people instead of for myself. Because unfortunately in the Bible it says, work 6 and rest 1. Everybody I know is trying to work 1 and rest 6. I'm trying to maybe rest half of that 1 and at least pay homage back to God. I want to make sure he knows he's at top of mind all the time. I think maturity is such a cool thing. It's a great word. It's something I used to fear. A lot of people talk about being professional. I would rather be more mature. I would rather have aged in my business well. I would rather carry that sensitivity we have now. Boy, if you could go back at 20 and carry the heart that you carry at this age with you instead of trying to bounce off every wall to win, how much more fun would it be?
Oh man, it would be awesome to go back for sure, knowing what we know now. And we still have so much more to learn. It's one of those things I think you realize the more I learn, the more I realize, man, I've got so much to learn.
Well, the problem with you and I is when we get together, I know we have specific ideas about what we're going to talk about, and I know I get off task so well. and so quickly. And it happens sometimes because you're such a good listener that on my end of it, I feel this desire to give back to other people so much. And when somebody like you is so willing to receive, you don't want to miss a topic when you're there talking to them. And it's like, it's a great skill to be a good interviewer. I used to love watching Johnny Carson talk to people when I was a kid, and David Letterman, and hearing, and then you saw those people in social meetings and they weren't that same person. You hope they would be when they got there. But for you, it's on and off the camera. You're kind of the same person, and there's an interest that's there, which is what I have. I think there's this natural curiosity that drives successful people. I think you want to try to figure out, how does it all work? What did that person do that I missed? You know, how do I get back and do what they're doing? You know, I'm so amazed. The children today are so capable of doing so much with technology that, you know, people of my generation just didn't have the capability to do. Watching them, if I could teach every one of them to, at the same time they have that skill set, to step aside and say, you know what, I have to put this to good practice. It's not just for play. It's just not for this. What if I made it meaningful every time I did something? So one thing, Brian, the only thing I want to make sure I do get out there, when I said the things earlier about goal setting and how I didn't want to set these goals and, you know, put ceilings on myself, I really want to be careful when I tell people that. How I want to do it instead, what I do is try to live in reality. What I'll do is take my previous year. I don't go back more years now, but I'll take the previous year against myself on a daily basis, trying to figure out where I stack up, right? And I look at that number. If I go to the tail end of my schedule and I look at December 31st, I wouldn't get past January 1st, because that number at 31st would scare January 1st completely to death.
Sure.
When I get to January 1st, though, and I look at that number, I think, well, I could have done that by lunchtime. Man, instead of resting right there, what if I could launch ahead and get to about January 12th on January 1st? Then who knows where we'll end up. I don't think, I'm going to get to pause in the middle in June. I think, just, boy, when I get to December 31st, where will we be? That's the difference. Like, I know one of your things that I admire about you is that you're able to go out and relax easier, and you take these great vacations. And not that you do it a lot, but the ones you take, I know that you really enjoy. I just got back from the Bahamas with my kids. I went down there last week to make sure I'm making memories for them,
right.
Not for me, but for them. And I have a ball watching them, but I sit there the whole time thinking,
you're ready to get
I'm
back.
not disappointing someone. I know I'm not disappointing them because I'm where I'm supposed to
right.
be. But when I get on that plane on the way back, my brain is racing so fast that when I hit the ground Sunday, when I got up, or actually hit the ground Monday, but when I got up Tuesday morning, and instead of waking up at 5:30 or 6 like I usually, I woke up at 3:30 because
you're ready
I
to
was
go.
already like a caged tiger waiting to get out to make sure that I accomplished everything. Because what I don't want to do in my life is disappoint someone else. I'm not living my life for them, but when people think enough of me to come to me and ask me my advice on something or need my help with something, I don't want to not be there and not do it for them. And I don't want to be so busy in something I'm doing at that moment that when they ask, I'm ill or I don't react properly when they ask. I don't want to be in that position. So Monday and Tuesday were days that I just fulfilled a bunch of people. Yesterday, same thing. Today, I've kind of gotten to do it the opposite myself. I got to have my staff meeting this morning, which while I'm there to teach them, the truth is I walk away with it thinking so much more about new things I could do to help them. And how do I feel better about it? And then I get to come do this podcast to you. And then this afternoon, I'm going to speak to the Realtors Association to kind of try to share with them my thoughts on what the market's doing and where we are. And none of that sounds like productive business stuff for the day. But in between all of those trips, there'll be a deal I negotiate here, or there'll be help I have to give with somebody else there.
Returning a call to a realtor.
But the real truth is these other things are just as important and have to have just as much priority for me, because if I feel like all I'm doing is taking away from the business that I'm in, then I feel selfish, and what I achieve doesn't feel very good. I had a friend of mine send me something yesterday asking me to run again for the Board of Realtors, and so do I have time to? No. But do I have time not to when people still respect me enough to want me to do it? No. So I guess I got to go do it again. And, I'm on a lot of boards, bank boards. I'm on a lot of HBA boards, things of that nature, because I got so much from each of those organizations. They've put so much in me that I owe it to them. And, friends of mine ask me, oh, well, on this board and that board, how much do they pay it?
It's not about that.
I don't even know.
Right.
I could care less whether I'm being paid or I'm not being paid.
Probably not impacting your budget.
And then when I find out I am being paid, sometimes like, well, that's something I can give to charity. That's a great thing to know. But what I'm inspired by, last week, if you could have watched the faces at the Boys and Girls Club when we went and had a day basically for them where we had blow up toys. The things they get to climb up ladders. We had everything, cone ice machines. Did everything you could do for them. And we try to do that 1 or 2 times a year for those guys. That's what I like. Or like a few weeks ago, we did this golf tournament for the Helene Foundation, which the Helene Foundation helps women who have cancer, who have kids. Because, when you don't think about it, and that lady's there getting chemo treatment, who's picking her child up at school?
Right.
Who's taking dinner to her child? Who's whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
And so the Helene Foundation helps those folks. And when I get to see that JAG gets to be such a big sponsor and help those people, that's when I know I'm doing the right stuff.
Sure.
A friend of mine, Wes Carroll, who probably has given more back to the home builders in this town than anybody I've ever met. Wes called me a week ago helping me out with something. He's one of my builders still. And he said, man, you're always so thankful and you always give to this and that and the other the HBA needs. And I'm like, well, yeah. And he asked me to do something else. Like, how can I say no? Because everything I am has come from help from all of you guys. Of course, I need to put my resources back towards that, because the truth is, I don't care how much wealth you gain. You don't need any more than you did before you had that wealth. Money is a scorecard. That's really all it is. Because if you start living for the love of it, and friends of mine will say, oh, that's because you've just got to. No, it's not. The reason you get more of it is you don't value it that much. When you start valuing anything so much that you hold on to it and you got to have it, right? Those things are the things that leak away from you. That becomes your sin. You covet those things. I try not to do that. Like, one thing I try every day, and it's hard sometimes because guys like you've got more hair than me, you're better looking than me, all those things. You look at other people.
Yeah, more gray hair than you, maybe.
Well, maybe. But you look at other people and you think, well, gosh, there's something I admire about them. But jealousy, resentment, wanting to be that, those things are not beneficial to anybody.
Right.
A kind word out of your mouth might change what happens in somebody's life today. And that's what you got to think about. Just like a harsh word might put them in a whole different direction. And we want to stop that from happening.
Well, I think there's a lot of thoughts I have here. I've been taking some notes here. Let me ask you this, a couple random things. Tony Robbins says most people, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. What do you think about that looking back?
I would say I agree with a portion of that.
Okay.
I agree with the second half of that they underestimate the 5 years. The overestimating 1 year, it depends on where they are in their game.
Okay.
If they're beginning their game, it's not that they overestimate what they can do. They are instead focused on that end goal so much that it becomes a weight on top of them and keeps them from achieving whatever they could. I do agree with what he's saying. When you're beginning, if you're trying to be me in a half a year, that's a mistake.
Sure.
But if instead you're trying to be, if you're starting from zero, your estimation of where you can go can't be but so high. And I don't think you can overachieve that. I think the reality is what you should do is find the numbers for a first year person in your business that you admire. Go back and ask them, because everybody thinks that you start out day one and you're the most successful person anybody's ever seen. No, what happens is I made every mistake anybody ever thought of making. I just was trying so hard. I did it in a shorter period of time.
You made them quicker.
Yeah.
Right. You were in action mode.
And I tried not to repeat them.
Right.
That was the goal. But everything, when I bring on new people and we talk about doing open houses, and I talk to them and I encourage them to put out 12 directional signs to get to that one open house. And they're like, well, man, that's a lot of work to get. Okay, well, you can either sit there by yourself at that open house or have people to entertain. And so I set that as a minimum number for me. Now they think, well, gosh, first day he ever did when he did that. No, the first open house I ever did, my boss made me do it, and I was hiding in the house in the kitchen praying nobody would come in so I wouldn't have to talk to him. But at the same time thinking, well, at least I can tell him I was here today. And then when they come in and grab me and make me actually have to show them the house that first few times, it was like that.
Well, what's interesting too is when you think about it, for that young realtor, it's like, well, 12 signs is a lot to put out. Well, maybe the 11th sign that you put out led to $1 million closing 3 months from now. That's the thing. So do you want that, $15,000 commission or whatever it is to cost you because you didn't want to put out another sign? That's not smart when you think about it.
Well, like that couple I mentioned a minute ago, Ted and Patty Geiger, I can remember the house I was sitting in when I met them at that first open house. And it was in like my second or third year in real estate. And they walked in and I was sitting on the people's couch watching TV, not prepared for anything. And they bought that house that day. They were getting married in a few weeks. And the next thing you know, you went through all these things. And, then the next time I went to an open house, I went with a whole different philosophy, because I'd had that immediate success one time. So I'm looking for, well, if that happened once, how do I take that open house and make it happen 5 more times in an event? And that's how I ballooned out to the 12 directionals. And, when we did our first parade of homes, gosh, who knows how many years ago now, but that first one, I had one house in the parade of homes. One builder trusted me enough for me to do it. And I remember how excited, it was like winning an Academy Award when he won one of the awards. I remember hooping and hollering, being at the very back in the nosebleed section, the most excited I've ever been in my life. And now we get to sit on the front row, and we're the corporate sponsor of it, and we might have 100 houses in the parade one year and whatever, but there's still that same excitement. And that sign thing, putting it out, we flourished it over into our parade stuff, putting balloons out. We spend so much money now getting ready to do the parade. And back then we were just reacting to it. Preparation makes you have more success. When you react to what's happening around you well, you can have immediate, spontaneous success, but not lasting success. Preparation makes you so much luckier. Every friend I have, no matter what the thing is I'm doing, says, "Oh, the only reason for you is you're the luckiest person I've ever met." I take that and I think, well, yeah, I hope I am the luckiest person you ever met. However, if you knew how hard I worked
Right.
to get this lucky,
Sure.
but it's okay that they think that way. But they all do. Now, when people come to me, you know what they all think? There's some magic dust, right? I'm going to just sprinkle a couple of fairy dusts over here, and it's just going to happen for you tomorrow, and you won't really have to work or try. You didn't. Obviously, I didn't have to work, right? Well, okay.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Absolutely.
You know.
And man, this morning in my morning meeting, there was a young girl named Emily, and she's still too shy when I call her out in meetings, and it hurts her feelings a little bit. And I felt like pouring on praise this morning, excited for her that we dealt with something, and then everybody else could enrich and share out of that. And I'm hoping tomorrow when she wakes up, she thinks, well, that was actually cool. He called my name in the meeting today instead of, oh no, I need to hide underneath the desk because it's too much on you. But I think right now, if I can do one thing going forward for the rest of my life, and I'm certainly going to do it with my children, I want to make sure that every person I come in contact, when they say they can't do something, no matter what that can't is, that I reframe that can't for them and make them realize how they can do it instead. Like I told my team a few weeks ago, I said, there's a word I don't recognize. And they're like, well, what is it? I said, it's no. I know some of you say it, but I don't know what that is. So when I hear someone say no to me, what I really hear them saying is, you didn't understand my question. It wasn't that you meant no to what I was asking. You really didn't understand. So I don't receive. So when someone says no to me, I don't like excuses. I'm a big person. When you start talking to somebody about what's going on, and they start giving you an excuse instead of the answer, I have very little time for excuses.
Right.
And no time for no. So when I ask someone to do something and they say no, I continue to talk like they didn't say anything and go right on past it because it really isn't a word. If I play words with friends all the time, it's one of my distractors on my phone. I've never used the word no on it ever. I put on it multiple times, but I wouldn't put that in front of that O because I don't want to give credence that it could be a real word.
Do you find that, like I'm real big on ownership. So if a technician, for example, if something happens, hey, we all make mistakes. We're all not on our A game all the time, but own it. At least own it and say, you know what, I should have done better. I could have done better. I didn't.
That's right.
There might be some reasons why my performance wasn't where it needs to be, but I'm going to work on those things. And if I let you down, I'm sorry. I'm going to work harder to make sure that doesn't happen again. And it's amazing how when people take ownership, and we're not the perfect security company by any stretch, but when things happen, I think why we do good is because I will tell the client, hey, I'd feel the same way in your position. We weren't at our best, and I'm sorry, but the ball got dropped, and I'm in control of the ball now. I'm going to get this across the finish line, and we're going to get it back on track here, and we just ask for your patience to help us get there. And I find 98% of the people are actually really surprised and very patient with working with you as long as you fall on your sword. You apologize and you say, here's what we're going to do moving forward. And I'm going to take this personally and make sure we get this across the finish line.
An example in our business would be, we meet a new buyer client, for example, and that buyer client starts telling us a story about how their previous agent didn't want them to do a home inspection on the home they were buying. And one of our JAG advantages right away is I say, well, look, we only use these two inspection companies. Both of them have errors and omissions insurance. If they miss anything, they have to fix it for free. So there's a responsibility to them when they go to your house. And I don't want any buyer that buys a house from me not to get a home inspection. And I don't care whether it's new or resale. It doesn't matter, because peace of mind that you buy with that little bit of expense, even though you think, oh, I don't have enough money to really pay for that too. Yes, you do.
You can't afford not to pay for
You
it.
can't afford not to. One
Right.
thing could pay for the whole. But if it didn't, and you felt okay going to bed at night without the worry, that's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more successful you become, the more you can really work for others instead of for yourself. Now, when we're struggling on the front end and we have to worry about where our mortgage is coming from, or we got to worry about whether I can put gas in my car today, or whether I even have enough money for lunch, we're working more for our own selves because we're thinking about our creature comforts. When you get past that and you start thinking about, I wonder how I could make that person's experience a little bit easier, then it becomes that you can do things more. Like people say, well, it's impossible. How could you guys sell that many houses in a year? You know what? It's not. Now, if I started out at the beginning of the year thinking about selling 2,000 houses this year from day one, no, I can't sell 2,000 today.
Right.
I hope to get good enough to one day, but today I'm not capable of that yet. But I can guarantee you I can sell 50 or 60 that day if that's what I have to do. Because I'm not going to stop until the job is complete. Ownership of time means when you start a project, you finish that project. That's important to me.
And the other thing is, I love the saying is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You know, so you don't look at the 2,000. You just, hey, I got to take my bite today. I got to take several bites to get towards this thing. So that's all good stuff. And I get the impression, Jim, we could sit here for probably another 2 hours talking about this stuff. But I did invite you on because I want you to share some of your real estate expertise with the audience today. So obviously we got inflation, we've got the recession. Well, some people would call it a recession. Some people would say 2 quarters of negative growth is a recession. I guess that's up for debate now. But from your point of view in the real estate world, what are do you have 5 specific things? Or are you just talking general?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And so what I would tell you first, I can only talk about the micro here. When I start looking at the broad United States, I'm not going to tie us to that because we are in a blessed environment here in Raleigh-Durham. You know, we're number one in every category, every analytic you can imagine. We're the best place you're going to go for that. So we're going to feel this recession less than other places. But the things I see broadcasting out, people are thinking, you know, home prices are going to start declining. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen instead, we have so many new jobs that have been created in the Triangle that we're going to continue to see a very meteoric upward pricing. Number one, because there's not enough homes on the market. You know, the look out when you see local stories, and I'm getting ready to talk to the Triangle Visitor in a little bit about a national story to put it in local focus, because I can't get that wrong story out there. You know, we are responsible right this minute. Me as a real estate agent, I'm responsible to be the knowledge person for my team, for the people who work with me, for our community. That's where we're at. So what I see coming, I believe this year you're going to see the national builders who it almost felt like they didn't need realtors anymore, start paying us the normal commission rates again, because they're going to look to the Triangle to make up their numbers in some of the other areas in the country that aren't doing quite as well. So they're going to feel the need to actually pay the realtors to sell the houses again. We're still going to see more and more interruption in our supply chains. I wish they were going to get better, but they're not, because we are building houses at a breakneck pace. We are the number one place in the country right now for building new construction, and we're doing it as fast as we can, and we don't have any inventory.
And not even keeping up.
At all.
Right.
We have zero inventory. What you're going to see this year, though, is those national builders especially are going to put their homes on the market earlier in the construction process. They have been waiting until they get 100% finished, and taking bids on it that first day when they hit the market, they're going to start trying to sell those homes earlier in the process. So a lot of unfinished properties are going to go into the MLS, but they're going to tell people at the same time, hey, by the way, I don't want you thinking you can change any of this stuff, but we are going to make it available to you a little bit earlier. You're going to see that because they're trying to, again, make up for these numbers other places. It's going to take a little bit longer to build a house this year. Took a little bit longer last year, took a little longer the year before. It's going to take more time this year.
Just materials.
We're not cutting down on time because availability and getting the stuff in is the problem. There's a different material that we become short on every day. The ones we start doing processes on to catch up, we get that cured, and then there's a new one that's bleeding out that we can't get over to. And at the same time, what I also see happening this year, I believe you're going to see more real buyers, not just investor buyers, have more opportunities to actually purchase now. We have this thing called Coming Soon we invented during the pandemic, and it really helped sellers sell homes. Buyers weren't even actively allowed to go inside the home to inspect it first, and they were under contract already. Investor buyers felt less risk in that, and they went and did it more readily and quicker. So some of the first and second and third home buyers got shut out of the marketplace, and they became renters. Those people are going to start coming out of the woodwork. They're going to be ready to buy their house now instead of investors being in line before them. Investors are still there. They don't have the advantage of coming soon anymore, which quite honestly I believe hurts the seller slightly, improves the local live-in buyers' chances a little bit more, but definitely injures the seller because we've taken away another method of selling. You know, for 30 days you got to do this great coming soon, and you say, well, why'd we take it away? I'd love to know myself. That's why I'm getting active on the board again, because our local MLS did that to us. May 24th, I can count the day. And I can tell you what happened that day and how the market responded that day. A couple weeks later, Triangle Business Journal prints, there's more houses on the market. No, there weren't. What happened is the ones that had been sitting and coming soon became active immediately.
Okay.
So that extra 1,000 houses, was on the market. And at the same time, June 1st, we merged with the Cumberland County MLS, brought in their 2,300 active listings. So when you woke up June 2nd, all of a sudden there were 5,300 homes on the market in the Triangle, and there had only been 1,900 back on May 23rd. Well, the reason for that is because we brought a whole nother MLS in. And instead of explaining that, all the news media sources looked at and said, more homes are on the market in the Triangle. Well, even if we had 5,300 more really on the market, we've got to sell 64,000 homes this year in the Triangle. I can't turn that over enough times if that's all the inventory I have.
Sure.
We need right now in the Triangle, we need to get to a level where we have about 2,100 active listings. 21,000 active listings. That would make us more of a neutral market where it wasn't really a buyer's or seller's market. We're so far from achieving that because we're really still about 2,200, 2,300 homes in the Triangle. The broader market that we represent more of now has a few more houses, but and our days on market look like they increased a little bit. Not really. We took coming soon away, which didn't count any days against you.
Right.
We brought another MLS in that their active days on market were 31 before they were going under contract, and we were 2.
Yeah, so Cumberland County is totally different area.
Completely
Yeah.
different, but a military-based
Sure.
product. But anyway, so our days on market went up to 9. And do you know what the number of days on market were in my career? 92 is the average number of days. We're at 9 and we're panicking and say, oh, the market's changed. No, it's not. Nothing's really happened. And interest rates, all they did was return to where they should be. They've been artificially low for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
my career, we've averaged 8.5% is the normal interest rate. We're not even close to that, and we're not going back to that. Every time the Fed now increases something, rates are going and reacting completely the opposite. Is a difference in the Fed lending rate and an interest rate for a home buy. Now, consumer credit cards, yes, those interest rates are more directly reflective, but they aren't on the other side. So the other things I think we're going to see an awful lot more fairness in the market, so that it's not all slanted to one side. I do believe we're going to continue to be an extreme seller's market, but I think the panic buy that some of coming soon caused, where you gave somebody $200,000 due diligence to beat out the next offer, went up, some of that will settle a little bit, but I can tell you right now, my average listing is still about 5.5% above asking price on the finished sales price, and that hasn't changed 1 second. The only thing that changed is the buyers now think they can actually have time to go look at the house instead of reacting from their bedroom. And that calming down is making a lot of them miss out on some of those houses too. I think that'll change back around. I think we're going to see people racing to get to projects again, because there's still no more housing available than there has been. Until we figure out how to fix some of these supply chains, the triangle's going to continue to struggle. Now, I hope it's a reallocation from some of these other markets that
as
are
they
not
slow down.
building as much.
Right.
Maybe we can get more of their materials to catch ourselves up. But when you are limited as badly as we are, we won't see that. We're going to see, if it's not more appreciation than last year, it's going to be pretty daggone equal. We're going to sell fewer houses this year, only because there'll be less available, because we've gone from taking 7 months to build a house to taking 13 and 14 months to build a house. That's not going to improve. It's still going to stay right there. The local custom builder is going to start becoming more of a local custom builder again. They're going to start taking pre-sales again, I believe. I think material costs are going to become more in line where they're more predictable. But I believe what's going to happen is the builders are going to start putting more allowance numbers into their contracts to be able to do these pre-sales. For example, they'll put a lumber allowance in rather than it being a hard number, so that up or down, if it goes down, the buyer benefits. It goes up a little bit, the
builder's
cost
protected.
the cost at least is protected.
Right.
And then they won't feel as scared to go out and actually do it, because for the last 3 years, what we've witnessed is builders were afraid to price because, number one, the market's accelerating at such a pace, they're afraid they can't catch up to it. And number two, they weren't sure what their real costs were, and they were afraid to put a tag on it before that happened. Mm-hmm. Now, the great news is the market's continued to respond that, okay, if the builder priced it too low, the buyer's bids have taken it to the adjusted level it should be at. We'll see more of that. We're going to see more people have to improve their skill sets as realtors to engage and help their clients. When there's very few listings on the market, you have to improve your skill sets to go get more listings, to create more business. Those are the things that will happen. That's kind of, I don't have like a crystal ball, but that's my predictions. I think one thing I do believe we'll see a little relaxation on, I don't think we'll see due diligence amounts be quite as high as they have been. They're still going to be high, but I think they're going to relax just a little bit, because I believe sellers are reading these national letters and they're thinking, well, gosh, as long as I've got a reasonable buyer on the other end, that's more important than getting the most due diligence money. You know, I think the unfortunate thing, the times we're in, have caused some of us to forget to be reasonable. I think you're going to see more people become reasonable. I think that COVID's going to stop being as big of a deal in our lives. Not that it isn't a big deal. I think you're going to see a lessening of that. I think the impact of that in real estate is going to lessen greatly. But I think the triangle is going to have the most explosive year it's ever seen in terms of where we finish volume wise. Might not be unit wise, but where we end up volume wise, people are going to be shocked because I believe we're volume wise way ahead. It's just units we've issued a little challenge.
Well, I think there's so many people moving here from up north, from California, places where there's high taxes.
Everywhere.
Right.
I mean, listen, so many jobs have been created in the Triangle. We're changing our community college system to meet the needs of a Toyota plant that's going up in Sanford because the type of employee they need to hire, we're not currently training in our community college system. So they're actually bringing that to our college systems. We are such a great place to live. The Triangle is going to continue to prosper, be a better place to live. I think that we are going to become more of an area that has a mixture of people from all of, not that we aren't already.
We're a pretty good melting pot right now, for sure.
It's going to become more enriched in that direction. I think, though, we're getting ready to grow up and be a big city. We have been kind of that Mayberry kind of
We're a big town.
town.
It's been a big town for a long time.
We're getting ready to become an Atlanta. We're getting ready to become one of those Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas was like us a few years ago. We're getting ready to become like them. Us, Nashville, a couple of other places that people really want to live in the U.S. And where the job enrichment and growth is really there. And the great news for us is real estate prices have been so low for so long that we're still one of the most affordable places in the United States. Despite the fact we're having all-time appreciation here, we're still so affordable, it's crazy. One of the trends I think you're going to continue to see in housing too, and I'll finish up there, I believe you're going to continue to see the outdoor living aspect of a house become more and more important. The openness of a floor plan. And I think we're going to start living more casually. I think the formality of living in a house that's got this room structured for this purpose, we're going to relax that a little bit. And you're going to have more rooms that are multi-purpose rooms that, this family room kitchen that have morphed together and they're one big room. That's the entire entertainment system. It's everything you want to do in a house in that one contained space. And then when you want to escape from that, you sneak outside. And I think you're going to see an awful lot of that. We're going to have that enrichment this year.
Awesome. I could definitely see that coming in. And the outside living, outside entertaining, you got the built-in grill outside, a little TV outside.
Only one negative coming with this, which is going to help your business. As we grow into a bigger city, there is going to be a criminal element that comes with it. We wish it weren't, but it will be there. So I think guys like you and iWatch are going to be important. I would advise every homeowner I sell to, get a security system, even if you don't plan on using it, for yourself. Protect, all of us get Amazon delivery now, right? If you don't have cameras set up somewhere and someone just happens to drop by and pick a package up, you don't have that knowledge. It's no different than just being a little more precautionary. I mean,
proactive.
Now when I get out of my car, instead of leaving it open with my wallet in it, I'm going to lock the door when I get out and take my wallet with me.
Sure.
But we were in Atlanta. My son and I were playing in a baseball tournament a couple of weeks ago. And we're driving everywhere you got to drive, right? And it's all congested traffic. Never seen so much traffic.
Yeah, Atlanta's crazy.
And my son told me, he said, every day, he said, Dad, I think today I saw more wrecks than I've seen in my entire life in Raleigh. Unfortunately, when you grow, some of that happens. But we're not growing just Raleigh. What we're going to see is the Triangle's borders, Wilson, Rocky Mount, Sanford, Southern Pines, Burlington,
Garner, Clayton.
They're all becoming enriched and wrapped into the Triangle. There is no border between the Triad and the Triangle anymore. We touch. Pretty soon it's going to be, are we the Triad or are we the Triangle?
Sure.
You know, and the reach is coming the other way from Charlotte to that Triad area too. So great news for realtors. Our market's expanding, so we're going to have more places to sell.
Mm-hmm.
We have to fill those gas tanks up a few more times
Right.
and sell a couple more houses to pay for it. But real estate's alive and well. And what we're going to find is some of these companies that were out there buying houses, some of these companies that weren't real businesses, they're going to go by the wayside. And it's going to be good for the people who have been here and are going to continue to be here. But I anticipate our population growth being pretty extreme this year. I love our mayor. I know other people may not, but I can tell you she sees the future pretty well. And I hope she gets elected again. I just think, man, Raleigh, North Carolina is the #1 place in the world to live. I don't know, how could we not be successful?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, anytime you see stuff in magazines, Raleigh, Durham, you know, the triangle, we're always in that top 5 places to start a business, raise a family, economic, pay, you know, a lot of that stuff. We're doing really good. So excited to be in this town with you, Jim. And, you know, thanks for joining me for another podcast today and sharing with everybody.
I hope we get to do it again soon. I mean, I have fun every time.
You let me know.
And every time I sit here and think, we should be doing this every week, because the things we say when we're in here, like when the cameras go off and everybody else doesn't get to hear them, man, if we had time for a segment to talk about what we were thinking about right there.
Right.
And you know, you can listen to our podcast and every word won't resonate with you. But look, because there might be one thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, if you're going somewhere today, a place you want to learn, if you're going to a conference, if you're going to any learning thing, set yourself aside. You're looking for the 5 things. Give yourself 5 things you want to learn at that experience. You're going to fill that notebook up, and you'll have 45 if you were trying to write down 5, I bet you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yep,
appreciate it.
I agree. Well, thanks again.
Thank you,
and
man.
thanks for joining us for another 5 Things podcast. Until next time. Thanks, Jim. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.